And welcome back to my channel. Now guys, I don't remember if some of you were around in the mid-80s, but sometime in the mid-80s on one of those popular radio stations, you used to have a section come on at 10 o'clock at night called Wacky News. Now, if any of you remember Wacky News, you remember that is some crazy things that happens all over the world would come on Wacky News at that hour. Now, I have a piece of wacky news that I just had to bring. Now, this actually happened in Chicago, in the United States, about 10 days ago, where this lady, she's an off-duty police officer. She was in her house, and she saw 3 men confronting another man. And the argument was getting extremely boisterous, and she thought that it might lead to some kind of violence. So she actually left her apartment, came down, and spoke with the men, asking them to cool down and see if they can work it out in a more peaceful, calm, quiet way, non-violent way, and so on. And because of how she spoke to them, the 3 men who were attacking the one, who were confronting the one man, those 3, they just walked away, leaving her with the one that was being confronted. So she stood there with him, explaining that she's an off-duty cop and she's glad to know that they have managed to sort the matter out non-violently and all of that. But here is what happened. As soon as she turned her back and getting ready to leave, the guy was bending down as if he's tying his shoelace. Seemed quite placid, quite he didn't seem in any way dangerous or threatening. So she now turned to walk away. When she did that, the man grabbed her, lunged at her, grabbed her from behind and grabbed for her gun. And when he did that, in the ensuing struggle, she shot him 3 times. He died about 2 days later in hospital. Now, here's the thing. The family of the man who died, they are suing the police lady and the city of Chicago for $10 million. $10 million. Right? No, I find this. And let me tell you what they are suing for. They are suing the officer and the city for $10 million, claiming that Smith's estate had been diminished because of funeral expenses. The lawsuit also claimed that his family suffered injuries as a result of his death, including, but not limited to, the loss of companionship and society, grief, sorrow, and mental anguish. The lawsuit also claimed that the officer used excessive and violent physical force and that she should have known that such force would not have been necessary in light of the circumstances. Oh my God. So, there you go. Now, before I get into what I think of this case, I would like you to just take a look at the actual scene of the incident as captured on CCTV camera.
Happened on January 18th in Chicago. Just before 1 o'clock that afternoon, private surveillance video shows 39-year-old LeeVon Smith arguing with a group of people. Eventually, an off-duty officer comes out of the building and attempts to stop the fighting. Most of the people run off, but Smith stays behind with the officer. When Smith appears to reach for the officer's gun, a struggle breaks out. The officer can then be heard saying she will shoot him.
Few moments later.
But here's the thing, guys. The Smith family is suing the officer and the city of Chicago for $10 million. That I mean 10 million like US dollars. Claiming that Smith's estate has been diminished because of funeral expenses. The lawsuits claim that his family suffered injuries as a result of his death, including, but not limited to, the loss of companionship and society, grief, sorrow, and mental anguish. The lawsuit also claimed that the officer used excessive and violent physical force, and that she should have known that such force was not necessary in light of the circumstances. But let's examine this whole thing for a moment. Basically, this man is more like a vagrant who has obviously made nothing whatsoever of his life. He's more than likely a drug addict and a petty thief. I don't know for sure, but the indication based on his circumstances and what he's doing and who he was involved with those men would suggest that. But not only that, he was probably under the influence of narcotics at the time of the incident. After all, nobody in their right mind would ever think of attacking and trying to disarm someone with a loaded gun, especially a trained person who was posing no threat to you whatsoever. As for the relatives, who are they? Is it his baby mamas, his mother, his sisters and brothers? I really wish I knew. Because what estate did he have that got diminished? Because they say diminish his estate. Do people with estates, by that I mean assets like money and values like stocks and shares and golds and jewelry in a vault somewhere, or real estate property, what estate did they devalue? The lawsuit claims that his family suffered injuries as a result of his death, including but not limited to the loss of companionship, grief and sorrow, and mental anguish. But tell me, when he was walking the streets, living a careless life, snorting the white stuff up his nostrils, if he was, probably grabbing handbags and breaking into people's homes, were there no mental anguish from the family then? What kind of companionship could he have been given when he was running the streets? So, while they were watching him living a useless life, where was their grief and their sorrow then? As for this claim about this lady using excessive and violent physical force, what was she supposed to do? What was she supposed to use? If any of you were in that same situation, who first would you be trying to protect? Yourself or the attacker? How much force is too much when you're being attacked by someone who wants to hurt you? An attack that could probably result in your death or at least serious injury. As for the part stating that she should have known that such force was unnecessary in light of the circumstances. In light of what circumstances? The circumstances where a man is grabbing your gun, the circumstances where you do not know what his intentions are, where his intentions might have been to simply take the gun and go, or doing something that might result in your injury or anything. If any of you making this lawsuit had a choice, what would you choose to believe under those circumstances? That you were fighting for your life, or that you were just going to be left unarmed and unharmed? One's natural instinct is to survive. That means making your mistakes and decide of what is best for you. You cannot assume that your attacker cares about your safety. Would any of you take the risk that your attacker would not empty the full clip inside your body upon disarming you? No. And as for this $10 million, $10 million, for what? For what? How do you come by that figure? Normally, when deciding on a figure as compensation for a dead relative, certain factors are taken into consideration. The financial values of that person has toward their family in particular, and to the wider society in general, and sometimes to humanity as a whole. It also considers the earning power of the person based on their current job, their education, the last salary they were getting, the market value of their skills and their vocational training, their future earnings over the next 5 years or more, and so on and so forth and so on. Could this reprobate pass even one single one of these hurdles on the way to having a compensation claim being looked at favorably? I don't think so. And here's the kicker. The police had not charged the lady for any offense because as far as they are concerned, this was a clear case of self-defense. And oftentimes, it is aspects of the criminal litigation that form the basis of the civil case. Therefore, no matter how low the bar is to successfully prosecute a civil case, the fact that there is nothing whatsoever to base the case on to begin with. Speaking from a layman's standpoint, this case is dead in the water. But then again, this is America, the home of bull manure litigations. Like that lady who dumped her coffee in her own lap through her own carelessness, and McDonald's had to compensate her for her own carelessness. Or for that RACHETASS pastor who race baited the police officers who were doing a welfare check on a premises. Oh my God. Anyway, I'll keep you guys informed as to how this case worked out. Stay tuned, and as usual, like, share, and leave a comment below. And I'll see you in my next video.